Moving on to Clippers Bucks. So the Bucks were trailing by 13 in the early fourth quarter, and Giannis just completely takes over the game. They try to get some stops by running a 2-3 zone with Jericho Sims in the middle of the floor, and Clippers got a couple of buckets at it, but it did a nice job of just kind of stagnating and changing the flow of the game. And on the other end of the floor, Giannis was just torching Ben Simmons, torching Nicholas Batum. He was using this spin move over and over again last night. Disguised it really well, too. He had a fun one against Nick Batum where he catches the ball on the left, kind of like elbow extended area there in the middle of that left side of the floor. And he's facing up, and the Clippers are basically zoned up on him. So they're in both driving lanes. Kawhi Leonard's kind of doing the little defensive 3-second dance where he's hopping in and out of the key, trying to make sure that he's ready to rotate. They're rotating on the high side, and Giannis just kind of waits for a second to kind of read the floor. And then he does a beautiful job of disguising a post-up, making it look like he was about to go kind of into a traditional slow-down post-up, where he turns his back into that high hesitation dribble and then just immediately spun off of it. It like disguised it like he was going to go for a slow, methodical post-up and then just immediately spun off of it, went right around Nick Batum. Kawhi had no chance. He was not even close to being there in time. He's right at the basket. It just reminds everybody that like when you're dealing with one of those true upper tier guys, this is one of the reasons why I've been excited about Luka Doncic when it comes to the Lakers, right? There are a handful of guys in the league: Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic. I think Jason Tatum has kind of entered into this group where it's like there's really nothing you can do. There's no player that stops them. There's no scheme that stops them. They are world beaters. And when you have one of those guys, you present a problem to the opponent that becomes very difficult to solve. It's one of the big things that we've underrated when we've talked about the Bucks in recent years, where we think about them as a broken roster. And look, here's the thing. They're not the best roster in the league. We all know that. But there's an important context to their last two playoff exits. Giannis didn't play. When Giannis played, even on a limited Bucks roster in 2022, because of the Chris Middleton injury, it was just Drew Holiday, a bunch of role players, and Giannis, and he still pushed the Celtics to 7 games. Because guess what? When you get into a playoff series, it's over and over and over and over again that he's coming downhill at you. And I remember early in that series, it's like Horford would wall him up. You know, like you'd have guys sliding their feet and absorbing contact. Grant Williams played some good minutes on Giannis in that series. But then what happened? After like the 10th, 15th, 20th, 25th time that he comes at you, he starts to just get through you. And there's literally nothing you can do about it. And he pushed that series to 7 games when it had no business going to 7 games. And that's where the optimism comes. That's why, have the Bucks looked mediocre at times this year? Yeah. You shouldn't write off Giannis. Have the Nuggets looked mediocre at times this year? Yeah, you shouldn't write off Jokic. Have the Lakers looked like they have some obvious roster flaws with their new build, especially at the center position? Yeah, but you probably shouldn't write off Luka Doncic and LeBron James playing the way that he's playing. And as I was watching that last night, it just goes to show you, like, Giannis is kind of flying under the radar this year because of all the excitement around Shai, all the excitement around Jokic. He's still one of those guys that presents a truly unsolvable problem for opponents. When Giannis sat out of the game, though, something really interesting happened. He kind of goes out of the game in that mid-fourth quarter stretch on a minutes restriction, obviously coming back from his injury. And the Bucks won the game with defense, and everybody was guarding. Dame had a really nice steal where they were running a ball screen with Zubac and Harden threw a bounce pass to Zubac on the roll, and Dame dug down off of Amir Coffey and got a steal that ended up leading to a run out and one for Kyle Kuzma. Brook Lopez blocked Kawhi at the rim because Kuzma flattened out the drive. I talk a lot about flattening out drives. When you flatten out drives, it gives your helpers more time to rotate. And when Brook has time to kind of read things on the back line, he can be devastating there. He had another block on another sweeping drive across the middle of the floor. He had 3 blocks in the fourth quarter. Kyle Kuzma took a charge, tagging Ivica Zubac on a roll. They were guarding. AJ Green stonewalled Kawhi Leonard a few times. Kyle Kuzma had multiple stops on the ball against Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, either forcing them into bad shots. He forced James Harden into a three out of the right corner that was like a foot and a half over the back of the rim. He stonewalled Kawhi Leonard into passing the basketball because he's got the length to bother that pull-up jump shot. Kuzma looks like a Swiss Army knife. I've seen him take charges. I've seen him battle Embiid in the post and front the post. I've seen him guard guards. I've seen him guard wings. He's grabbing a ton of defensive rebounds. He is a force multiplier for this defense. And I was especially excited to see him in the context of playing alongside Giannis. Because again, that's what makes this work. When you're talking about traditional switching schemes, it becomes about how many good defenders do you have on the floor. But when it comes to these more like traditional pick and roll schemes where you have Brook waiting at the basket, where you have Brook coming up to the level sometimes, it becomes more about off-ball defense. It becomes more about how athletic are you on the back line? How well can you protect the rim and disrupt things when the ball gets past Brook Lopez against types of players that are going to pull him out to the level? And like, yes, Chris Middleton brought a lot of ball handling to this team, which, by the way, like, Kyle Kuzma's done some of that. He had a big, one of the biggest clutch plays in this game. It's 104-104. Kuzma attacks downhill with the ball, forces Zubac to switch on him, swings a skip pass to Taurean Prince. Amir Coffey ends up switched on Brook Lopez because Kyle Kuzma got downhill so hard he forced Zubac to switch. Got Brook a one-on-one in the post against Amir Coffey. He just bullied him right under the basket for an and one. They ended up leading the rest of the game from that point. You know, I'd already loved the early returns from the Kyle Kuzma trade. He made it immediately clear within the first few games that he was planning on playing winning basketball. Now adding Giannis to this mix gives this team crazy potential. And I have my eye on them as a team that could potentially jump considerably higher up my contender rankings after I see them with Giannis and Kuz together more. It's a physicality thing. It's a size thing. It's a protecting the rim and rebounding thing. It's a maybe you just can't handle Giannis Antetokounmpo on the other end of the floor kind of thing. That makes me so excited about them in the big picture. And then Dame, I mean, like Dame, when he was in the first round last year with Chris Middleton, had to carry such a massive offensive load. Within the context of this sort of build, when they get to the postseason, when Giannis is playing the way he's playing, when you have this type of defense, Dame is a really dangerous second option. Has this remarkable ability to get to the foul line on three-point shots. He drew 2 fouls on three-point shots in the fourth quarter, hit another big step-back three off the left wing, just manufacturing points. That is another force multiplier within the context of what this team is capable of on the offensive end of the floor.